We are in the red light. We are live. The red light district has come to us.
That's it.
Hey, Hirsch, how's it going?
It's going well. Thank you, Nancy. It's wonderful to see you today. I don't know what the weather is like where you're at in Florida. Is it nice today?
It is nice today. This has been a nice week of 70-ish weather without humidity, so I'm just enjoying it.
Well, this is the Midwest in 2024. So yesterday was beautiful and in the 80s, and today is in the 60s and stormy or supposedly stormy. I don't know, a little bit rainy, but we'll see. But
Well,
anyway, um, when
I,
you I was just going to say when you cannot talk about the weather, you have to come up with some other way of getting people's attention. And I think that's what we're talking about today is personality.
Yeah, and talking about the weather is pretty mundane and pretty. It doesn't really spark a lot of interest. Although it's amazing how yesterday I was on whatever group sessions, and sure enough, people want to know, well, what's the weather happening in your place, and and share what's happening there. It's like, does it really matter? It's constantly changing. However, sharing personality, our personalities, while they too could change, there's something kind of stable about it. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talk about this a lot on our know and sell pointers. We talk about the ways in which um, you are branding yourself with every piece of content, with every conversation. And that's why messaging is so important and goes hand in hand with sales so that you don't lose yourself when you're getting into the sale. But one of the things personality wise that I was thinking about yesterday was overselling. Sometimes in our enthusiasm, we can oversell and put maybe too much personality. From your experience, what's your take on that?
Oh, I love that you went to that area of overselling, because I think that is the reason, the primary motivational factor, Hirsch, why I started to take a look at how I sold, because I recognized that my enthusiasm, which it felt, genuine and real, and it certainly was on my part, but that enthusiasm was not necessarily shared by the buyer. And it came across to the buyer as hype, and it came across to the buyer as being overzealous, if I can use such a big word. And I had to rein in and curb in that enthusiasm, because you need the enthusiasm, it's energy, and you need to transmit that energy to the buyer. But over energy comes across as phony. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that what I have always done, and you tell me whether whether you would adjust this or what you think as a rule. But what I've always done is I followed the lead of the client or the person I'm speaking with, not in terms of matching energy, which I have had coaches that have told me, match energy. If they're high, stay high. If they're low, stay low. And there's some, I'm interested to see what you think of that. But I've tried to follow their lead in terms of what their enthusiasm level is for the product. So if we're talking about a product and I'm selling them something and they're expressing a low level of enthusiasm or trust, I try to bring that up, but just enough so that it's reasonable. In other words, if they're super high on the program or we're talking about it, then I'm free to be really enthusiastic because I'm reinforcing what they already believe.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is kind of matching energy level. And I totally agree that it's a matter of taking our cues from the buyer. And when the buyer is enthusiastic, yes, we need to be enthusiastic. They're energetic, we need to raise our energy. When they're slower, more methodical, more thoughtful, notice I've already slowed down my speech and I
Yeah.
softened my voice because it is important. It isn't, I don't think of it as mirroring, although I know that is often used as a kind of a label for this kind of uh, behavior. I don't think of it as mirroring because to me, again, mirroring seems like it's a technique, it's a tactic, it's phony. I think it is actually taking our cues from the other person. And I see that as being very authentic and very real. And what I especially liked, Hirsch, and I think that I want to emphasize it for listeners, is that when you are in a situation where there is some energetic disconnect going on, don't ignore it. Actually inquire, stop. It's like identifying that there's a white elephant, in the room rather than just trying to live with it. So again, I'm curious how I've stimulated your thinking along this line.
Well, I'm thinking now as the subject or the customer or the prospect, and I'm thinking about how when I'm talking to somebody who's telling me about a new offering, that I am very soothed by their recognition of any concern I might have. Like when somebody says to me, Hirsch, I can tell you're anxious, you bristled at that. You bristled at that a little bit. What is it? Because they're getting real with me. And if they're a good salesperson, they have an answer for it. But I like that they're in that real moment and we're really locked together.
Mhm.
You're not buying any of this. Why are you? What is you're holding? You have a concern. What is it? And I find that very comforting because I feel like, okay, this is someone that down the line I can tell them things that I'm unhappy about and they're okay with that.
Yeah. So this is to me, Hirsch, what bringing your personality is all about. It's not, well, I'm flamboyant and I got a hat and I'm wearing bright colors. Well, that's my personality, but it is being authentic in the real time, being present with that person so that you recognize information they're giving you without their having to speak it. So they're not necessarily saying to you outright, I'm skeptical, but watching their body language, hearing their tone of voice, gives you that information. And hence, to stop and talk about it makes perfect sense. In fact, there's a word for it, which I learned many years ago. I love this sense. It's called meta communication. It's communication about communication.
Oh, I love that. I love that because I everything about my career has been very meta. Working with um, directors of TV commercials and creatives of TV commercials, and helping those people promote what they're doing. Not just writing commercials or promoting products. And so the meta aspect of talking about people who talk about things is very natural to me. And those levels have always been familiar to me. But I think sometimes we don't give people enough credit for being able to uh, dig a little deeper and go a little deeper into the levels of communication that they're having. And that's one of the things with AI that comes up for me is how many levels can it go? How deep can it go?
So
And
I'm going to interrupt here because I really want to, again, emphasize something about depth because I believe, Hirsch, that's what you bring to the branding process. I believe that you listen with that third ear and that third eye. I know that's seeing rather than listening. But in other words, you bring your whole repertoire, your whole self to the experience of understanding your prospect and what they're communicating so that again, even though they may not find the words for it, they don't have the language for it. See, that's your gift is you hear so well and you get underneath, which I don't believe AI can do that. I mean, we can
yeah,
probe, etc., but it takes a human being with your wealth of experience and wisdom to go underneath and therefore identify the message. And I do the same with sales. Go underneath and listen to the buyer in a way that, again, the buyer's not necessarily using words, but there's a lot of communication taking place.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, I'm working with a new client now for whom, you know, he is a trainer, a coach himself, a speaker, and soon an author. And so every word that this person says is matters. And they just don't want to leave it to their own devices to create every word. But it doesn't mean they're not doing the messaging, and it's who they are. And so I think that listening is, when you think about AI, it would be a disaster to put that much importance and responsibility on AI. So I'm not an anti AI. I don't have a polar opinion about AI. I think it would be silly not to use AI for the things that I use it for. But but when you're coaching people on sales, Nancy, when you're giving them feedback on a prospect, I mean, that we're talking about years of experience, years of training. So I think we should rejoice in the human element.
Yeah. So it goes back to, we have to bring ourselves to the marketing and sales arena. And bringing our whole self is, and not a partial self, not like, okay, I bring, this particular tool or methodology. I mean, I've always been impressed, maybe you are too, with people who are, I'm going to use the word therapists. They do something to support good health, but they don't have just one trick. They don't have just one tool in their tool belt. And whatever their training is, including the fact that they may be inspired at that moment, they add that and bring that to the situation. Hence, they're better at delivering a result. Well, Hirsch, that's exactly what is true for you and me. That our years and wisdom have prepared us in a way that you're not going to get from other people, even though they bring something special as well.
Yeah. I think that that's at the heart. That's cuts to the heart of why we do this know and sell pointers. We do have some other stuff coming up that we'll be talking about next week as far as our larger plans. But I think that that's at the heart of it. People who are listening that appreciate the nuance and subtleties of messaging and selling, whether they just want to apply some of these little tactics, here and there, we all each should try to improve every day, or they're looking for something a little bit deeper. I think those are the kind of the soulful people that we love to engage with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I want to support people who are on a mission to better society. In however way that comes about, there are so many ways for us to contribute and make the world a better place. And so helping the person who's making the world a better place is definitely something. Sign me up. I'm all in.
Amen.
Amen. All right. So this concludes another episode of Know and Sell Pointers. If you're watching us live or in replay, please let us know. We welcome your comments, your questions. And until next time, to your sales success, Nancy Zare, Sales Whisperer.
And Hirsch Repun, the Message Therapist.